So today's video, we're going to cover some more of the property language that you might hear and the acronyms that you're going to hear along your property investing journey. Now, this is, I suppose, part two of the series. We did another one which covered BMV, ROI, ROCE, and that type of stuff. So check that out if you want to. However, today we're just going to do another 10, and this is hopefully going to aim to help some property investors that are obviously interested in property, looking to build out the passive income, looking to increase the cash flow, looking to build the wealth, maybe even, again, escape the job that you might be trapped in. Now, property for us is fantastic because it allows us to live the life that we want to live, brings in enough money to keep everything going and so on. So again, if you're looking to learn, then maybe check out the Black Belt Property Academy. The link should be in the description below. But anyway, let's get into it. So what we're going to cover today is, first one is SSTC, sold subject to contract. So when you're in a hot market like it is at the moment now, so last week my wife rang up on one particular morning, I think she rang up about 12 properties, and we could only get to view it, we could only book to view 3. Now you might think, well, why is that? Because the other 9 have already sold subject to contract. So they hadn't officially got the keys or anything like that, but an offer had been accepted and it was going through the conveyancing. That's a very hot market. And now again, what happens in a hot market, I know I'm already going off topic here, is people, it's classic economics 101 really, supply and demand. There isn't as many houses on the market as there are people wanting to buy the properties, so therefore prices push up. However, when there is a crash like there was in 2008/9, then obviously it flips the other way around. There are a lot more houses than there are buyers, or there are a lot more houses than buyers who can get finance and raise finance. So sold subject to contract is when a person's put in an offer, the offer's been accepted, and then obviously a memo of sale from the estate agency is then sent to the solicitors, and then the solicitors are then starting to draft contracts and that type of thing. So when you see sold subject to contract, doesn't actually mean that everything's gone through yet. It means that an offer's been accepted and it's wherever it is on that 8, 10, 12-week timeline. So sold subject to contract, SSTC. The next one, SDLT, stamp duty land tax, our favourite tax. Yeah, right. Okay, so as a property investor, you'll understand that there's a surcharge, which means an additional charge you'll need to pay on normal residential rates. So if you've got your own residential home now and you're looking to invest in a second home, you'll have to pay the appropriate stamp duty plus a 3% surcharge. Now, that's at the moment in late 2025. You might be watching this early 2026, late 2026, 2027, whatever it is, and stamp duty land tax barriers have changed depending on the economy. So again, I'm not going to go into the full ins and outs of the percentages, but what you need to be aware of is, if you're going to put in, again, easy maths, an offer of £100,000, unless stamp duty's changed, like I said, you're going to have to pay 5% on top of that, which is really, say it to our mentees, the privilege of being able to buy a second property. So £5,000 are on top of your purchase price, which again is why we always say, teach our mentees, you must secure the best deal possible for you at the start. You never want to be going into a deal thinking I've overpaid for this, because you're already on the back foot, unless you can add an amazing amount of value, basic stuff like changing a 3-bed to a 4-bed, or making sure that you're opening up the living area, making sure it's more open plan, and seeing that you can push through. But you never want to pick up the keys and think, I've paid too much. Okay, so SDLT is stamp duty land tax. That is paid when you need to pay everything to purchase a property. So on most listers, I know they've got, I think it's 2 weeks after the completion to pay HMRC, but they normally just ask for it all on one payment really. ERC, early redemption charges. So an early redemption charge is if you purchase a property again and then you're going through, you may have done the BRRR strategy, so you might have bridged the property at first, done your refurb, and then put it on a long-term lending product, like I said, like a mortgage. When you've got that mortgage there, depending on who you're going to go with. So again, if you're a traditional buy-to-let person, it might be TMW, the mortgage works. It might be Precise. It might be Fleet Mortgage. There's loads out there, but whoever it is, the chances are they're going to have an early redemption charge. So It might be a step charge, so you might be tied in for 5 years, but if you need to come out of that mortgage on year one, then they probably will charge you 4% of the loan value. Then on the second year, it might be 3%. Then on the third year it might be 2%. So they might start off at 5%, the year later 4%, the year later 3%, the year later 2%, and then on the fifth year 1%. And after the fifth year, then there are no early redemption charges. It's in your lender's best interest to front load the payment so they're getting the money at first rather than leaving it, spread too much. So always be aware of that. One thing we always mention to our mentees is don't just get excited by what looks like a low headline rate, because there might be product fees, there's likely to be product fees, arrangement fees, valuation fees, solicitors fees as well. So for instance, now we were looking last week, speaking to the broker, TMW are doing one at the moment now, which sounds really, really good. Free valuation, free legals, and they have the best rate. So again, in instances like that, you still need to put it into your spreadsheet of how much does this cost to borrow the money, but you need to know that it's not always about that headline rate, definitely not. So early redemption charges is a penalty that you would pay if you need to transfer or come out of that mortgage. So just be aware of that. Some of them aren't a percentage, some of them like set at 2,000 or 1,500 or 2,500. So just be aware of that and factor that into your due diligence as well. Next one, OPM, other people's money. So if you're really looking to scale your portfolio, congratulations. On a little side note there, check out the link below for the Black Belt Property Academy. That's where we really transform people from white belt property investors through to black belt and beyond. So have a look at that. Check out some of the testimonials as well. So OPM is other people's money. So you might know some people that have a few quid. They might have their own business, they might be a successful professional, but are happy doing what they're doing, but understand that with the money in the bank, it's not doing as good as it should be. So when you're using other people's money, that's where, again, you could say, right, well, if, and again, done properly, if you lend us however much, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, we will pay you back whatever interest rate that you want in 12 months or 18 months, and then compare it to what you'd be getting in the bank. So again, if it's a lot more than they'd be getting in the bank, then again, it's worth presenting it to them. So again, other people's money, OPM, is when you're using that, again, to leverage to grow your portfolio. In theory, using other people's money when you take out a mortgage, because you need to put in your 25% deposit, but then the other 75% you're borrowing from the bank or the commercial lender. So you are really using OPM there. It's just that we don't think that way because it's a company money. So OPM, the next one, PD. So I know I'm jumping around a lot here. When you're starting to do bigger projects where you think, right, well, this is a 3-bed semi, I'm going to go out, I'm going to put an extension on the back. I want to really open up this bottom space. I want to be able to do other pieces and pieces so I can push through the ceiling value. PD is permitted development. Now, it's a step underneath. Obviously, I'm talking vague terms here, planning permission and so on. So planning permission is when you need to, fill out numerous forms, make sure that it all gets approved. But whereas permitted development now, I think it was brought in about 5-6 years ago, maybe 2020, something like that, or they relaxed it in 2021, something like that. So for instance, now under permitted development, you can go back 3 meters on a semi-detached property. You can go back 4 meters, single story, yeah, obviously ground floor, 4 meters on a detached property. Now, if there's enough room at the back of the garden, what you can't do is, when especially up in the northwest, you'll see that some terrace properties, there's the back wall, and 20, 30, 40 years ago, they built an extension right up to the back wall like that. So again, if your semi-detached or detached back boundaries there, you can't build it straight up to that. So you can go out to 3 meters, but there's got to be enough space here. So again, I'm definitely not an architect, as you probably found out, but we speak to lots of people, especially we've got a fantastic architect at the moment now who definitely knows his stuff. He's part of our power team. So yeah, permitted development allows you to do certain things without going for full planning permission. So it's definitely something to be aware of when you're going out doing your viewings. If you're thinking, right, I want to be able to pull out as much money as possible, I don't really want to flip it, but I need to put in 40 or 50 grand to do this brilliant refurb, but yet the uplift will be 75, maybe 80, possibly 100 grand. Permitted development will allow you, it's like a key to unlock that extra potential, really. The next one, D to V. You'll hear this a lot on courses or anything like that. Direct to vendor. So that really is all your best deals are always, always, always going to come from direct to vendor. So that's when you're speaking direct to the person who's in charge or who owns that property, and there's no estate agents involved, which means there's none of their fees. You're just speaking to them, and again, it's not B2B, business to business. It's not B2C. It's P to P, person to person. So if you can build rapport with them, be honest with them, explain how you can help them out, explain how you get it over the line, explain that this is what you do, and that obviously you're not going to rip them off, but yet they're going to save money, then those are always going to be the best deals. So D to V. Now, D to V, and again, I'm going off here, it's not just a one-off event. You can't just, arrange, you doing it is definitely not the best value of your time. You can't arrange for somebody to go out and post 50 or 100 leaflets and then sit by the phone or your inbox waiting for it to go off with leads. It needs to be systemized. It's marketing. So marketing is not just a one-off event. Marketing is a system. So with that, you need to be doing probably the same 5 or 6 streets every 6 weeks, every 6 weeks, every 6 weeks. So it keeps dripping on them. And then leads will start to trickle through. But again, that's D to V. Next one, SA, serviced accommodation. So Airbnb type stuff, all right? We don't have any serviced accommodation. However, it's not in our goal to achieve next year because we've got a few other things, but maybe the year after. So again, as part of our 5-year plan for our portfolio, we've got it loosely in the future, but it's not high priority. Definitely not as yet. But SA is fantastic because you can turn a simple 2-bed terrace to whatever, or a property that yields, let's see, £1,000 per calendar month in rent. It could yield 1,500, 1,800, maybe 2,000 when you go down the serviced accommodation route, because people are paying per night, and it's a home from home, really. It's got everything in there. It's got obviously your washing machine, dishwasher, or anything, cutlery, utensils, furniture, television. It's got everything in that somebody would need to. A bit like, a hotel room. That's the best way to explain it, really. But again, it's a house. So SA, serviced accommodation, you hear a lot about that. The margins are fantastic. But again, we've got to remember that where the margins are fantastic, if you're not doing the hands-on type of stuff, you're going to be doing, you've got your online travel agent, your OTA that's sorting it all out. They're going to take a big chunk out of the money. Then you've got your cleaners. So I'm not saying it's not profitable. Definitely not. Of course it is. It's like everything, you need to be experienced and understand how to refine and make the process more and more efficient. Next one, HMO. Now, you'll hear lots of people saying, is it house in multiple occupation or is it house of multiple occupation? Who's actually bothered, really, in or out? I'm sure it's in. But a HMO, house in multiple occupation, is where tenants are moving in, but they're paying for their particular room. So the room might include an ensuite, it might not include an ensuite. Again, this depends on you knowing your end user. If it was a social housing provider, or we're putting it on a 5-year lease, and there wasn't any difference in their rates if it had an ensuite or not an ensuite, then obviously you'd be daft to put an ensuite in. Unless, this is where again it goes like that, you're looking to get a commercial valuation and pull out even more money. But when you are looking to do a commercial valuation, they may want, possibly some lenders want, like a contract with a provider to show that they're going to be paying that much each and every month, each and every year for the next 3 or 5 years. But HMOs are fantastic where they can really increase your cash flow. So for one of our properties now, so say for instance, I'm just trying to think of one, it's a 3-bed end townhouse that's renting out at the moment for 1,075. 3-bed end townhouse, probably completed that a couple of years ago now, really. Set and forget refurb, fantastic, done and dusted. If we were going to convert that to a HMO, we'd probably squeeze in another 4th bedroom somewhere. Now, currently in our area, or in our main investment area, they're paying between £400 to £450 per room. So again, that's through a social housing provider. So if we changed it to 4 rooms, and again, £400 a room, 4, 8, 12, £1,600 a month, that property would yield. If they were paying £450, 16, 17, it'd be £1,800 per calendar month. So again, you need to understand that HMOs are fantastic for increasing your cash flow. You just need to make sure that when you're doing the refurb, you're jigging things around properly to make sure it meets the licensing and other regulations. Really, you need to make sure minimum room sizes of, I think it's 6.51, 6.52 for single bedrooms, and obviously in our area as well, each room needs to have a sink in it as well. It doesn't need to be a large sink, but it needs to have access to hot and cold water. So just be aware of that, really. Again, check that if you are getting into HMOs, you don't just jump into a property thinking, right, I'm going to turn this into a HMO, then find out that it's an Article 4 area and that you can't do that. Now, Article 4 means permitted development rights are removed, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't get a HMO through. You'd need to make sure you speak to professionals and then you put it through as if to say, we're going to turn it to a HMO, and that way they still might say no, but I don't want you to think that when it's a Article 4 that you've got no chance. It's just that, your chances are reduced. But HMOs are fantastic. As soon as you start to build those into your portfolio, you look at buy-to-lets and think, why am I bothering with these buy-to-lets when they're cash flowing 300, 325, £400 a month? But these HMOs, for a little bit more work, are cash flowing 800, £1,000. Definitely. But again, it's all about that experience, white belt to black belt journey. Check out the Black Belt Property Academy. Okay, it's in the link below. The next one, GDV, gross development value. This is often referred to when you're doing like residential to commercial, commercial to residential. But when people say GDV, it basically means what's the end value going to be. So if you purchase a property at 100 and you think that you could get it to 160, then your end value is going to be 160, or your GDV is going to be 160. So gross development value is really just what's the end value going to be after all the work's done. And the last one, not an acronym, but Section 24. Now, some of our early properties were in or are in our personal names. Now, when we first started off, that's what everybody did. You'd get another property. There were no need really to create a limited company that your properties will be bought through and held in and so on. However, I think it was about 2015, 16, again, our lovely government decided that Section 24 means that you cannot offset any mortgage payments against your profits. So according to that, now we've got a property that generates £1,000 and 75 pounds per calendar month in rent. We cannot take off, I think it's a 550, 600. So say for instance, we can't call it £600. We cannot take off that £600 per calendar month as an expense. So according to the tax man, we earn from that property, £1,000 a month, 12 grand a year. When obviously we don't, because half of that goes to mortgage, to the finance. So just be aware of that. And I say it a lot. I mention it a lot in my blogs as well, other YouTube videos. I mention it in my upcoming book as well. Get a copy of that when it comes out. How's it going with that? With you can't. I'm going to say it now. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a solicitor. I'm just telling you stuff based on our experience. Okay? So always seek professional advice. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I don't know whether that probably wasn't exciting for you, but at the end of the day, it's not all about super sexy, exciting types of things with property. You need to know what we class as the nuts and bolts. You need to know the foundational stuff in order for you to grow. Like karate, like martial arts, you need to know the fundamentals, and the fundamentals need to be nailed on and solid if you're going to grow above them. If you're building on weak foundations, you're going to go all over the show. Anyway, check out the link below. Have a look at the Black Belt Property Academy, where we take white belt investors through to black belt and beyond. It's not just a selling course type of information, selling information. It's more about a transformational journey of helping you with your mindset, definitely skill set, but helping you achieve your goals along the way as well. And hit the subscribe button as well. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. All the best.